Do you want to talk about, one interesting thing with this lecture is that you ended up in Rome doing media research using some typical archives.
Yes.
What were you studying?
12th century church history. I was studying administrative history. It was the papal administration, and what I was studying was the overthrow of the Gregorian party in the 12th century papacy by the forces, the Cistercian reform forces. It was papal politics, but curial politics, the politics of the curia, which had just been formed really by the Gregorian party, the Cluniac's order. The Cluniac order was the dominant force in curial politics. But in 1133, they had an overthrow, a deposition of one of the popes, Anacletus II. And behind this revolution, the deposing of a pope and the installation of Innocent II as the real pope, it was a disputed papal election led to a revolution, were the Cistercians and St. Bernard of Clairvaux and a whole group of anti-Cluniac. They represented different cultural politics, among other things, that had to do with church architecture, decoration, attitudes towards printed texts as against oral tradition, so forth. So, and all these things converged here in a political form. So that's what I was studying there. And I did it for 2 years. It was very pleasant years.
And then from there on, you were writing history at that time.
I was writing history, but the first stuff I published was on philosophy of history. It was on people like R.G. Collingwood and Christopher Dawson and Croce and Toynbee, people of that sort of stuff. I was always interested in the relationship between history, historical research, and philosophy of history. And what I began to see is that the similarities among historians, the orthodox view is that history is one thing, philosophy of history is a distortion in the mode of a reduction of historical reality. It's believed to be a highly conceptualized and abstract rendition of the historical record for ideological purposes. I increasingly came to the view that while these were different in form, the formal attributes were different, that there was no real distinction at the semantic level between the two genres of historical reflection. So that this commonplace, which for me, every history presupposes a philosophy of history, and every philosophy of history presupposes a certain body of historical information that justifies its emplotment of the data in the way in which you do it at a very high level of abstraction, say, as Hegel does, or Marx and Engels do in the Communist Manifesto. And it appears that you're doing it in a concrete, in much greater detail, in a microscopic study of a discrete historical period, richly detailed, richly elaborate. But in reality, the formal attributes of the semantics of the two representations are much the same. So that I wanted to collapse that distinction, not fully, any more than I want to collapse the distinction between narrative and description. But these become emphases within discourses, ways of different kinds of emphasis rather than polar oppositions or activities.